Hi, good evening. Hi, my name is Anna Chung. I am the principal researchers in Unit 42 with Palo Alto Network, which is the global threat intelligence team. Thanks for having me today. I am based in Amsterdam, but I grew up in Taiwan, lived in the US for 10 years. And kind of jump multiple organizations and institutes throughout my career. So when I listen to Jamie's talk, I have lots of deep thought about it. But today, I promised to give a talk about the globalization of cybercrime. So, um, if we want to continue the discussion about the cybersecurity career, we are more than happy to talk about it later on in the social media. But today, let's focus on the cybercrime in globalization. Uh, so, I want to talk about, today, start with a bunch of underground advertisement I came across back in 2018. On your left hand side on the screen, you can see people are renting out, leasing out a bunch of phone number across various countries, various regions to Chinese cyber criminals. And in your upper right hand side, you see it's an SMS forwarding software that I've never seen before. It allows people to rent a number for a short period of time, maybe 15 minutes or so, and do various things they want. And they can release that number later on or have a priority to rent it back again. And in the middle, you see there's hundreds, if not thousands, of SIM card tied to a GSM modem with lots of cash in front of it. Look a little bit suspicious, but at the time I didn't fully understand what is it doing. The most confusing part is this beautiful lady in a really, really nice dress that I have never put on myself, and showing the capability to use the software that allows one person to control hundreds of mobile devices. So back in 2018, a little bit of context, I was doing uh, fraud, cybercrime research in various underground market. But because I grew up in Taiwan, I speak Mandarin, so I was paying extra attention to Chinese speaking underground forums. It's important to highlight not all of them are physically based in Chinese speaking countries, but some of them are just like all around the world, but appears or being actively involved in the same Chinese speaking underground forums. Um, Within that same forums, there's multiple of them, a marketplace. They're also selling e-commerce website accounts such as Lyft, Airbnb, Facebook, WhatsApp, Yahoo, Google. Um, it was very confusing for me. I don't understand the business model at all. And I assume it is something related to account takeover or SIM swap scam at the time. So I decided to look into it. And as you can see in the screen, the known information for me was only two. I know the targets. I know certain underground service people are talking about. But to continue this research and proceed, I just list out a bunch of questions and see if I can try to fill out those informations by observing the active communications between vendor, buyers, sellers in this, well, let's just call it underground marketplace, because it's not necessarily the deep and dark web that by the traditional definition that we're familiar with. So at the time, I tried to first understand the underground keywords and jargon that I've never heard of, and what is the actual meaning of it. And later on, I'll try to understand who are trying to use those words. When do they use it in their advertisements? And later on, what are the service and goods tied it together? Can I somehow group those information, group those messages together and see if they're related to each other? Later on, once we have the basic structures, the bones, then we can develop further and try to understand, hey, what is the availability? What's the price? What is the vendor's pricing strategy? Do some of them by accidents trying to offer tutorial to monetize or profit from their service. They try to explain to the potential buyer, hey, like, how can you make money out of this? If so, who are the potential buyer? What was their past activity in this semi-legit, semi-illegal marketplace? Last but not the least, I really, really want to put together all the pieces of the puzzle together and understand what is the entire workflow look like, especially when it comes to monetization. So in the end, I realized my hypothesis was not exactly correct. It is not about a bunch of threat actor using those phone numbers to control the account they just compromised. In addition to that, they try to advance their financial profit by tying those stolen payment information, such as credit card number, uh, PayPal accounts, and tie it to those fraudulent numbers and create a new identity, new account for the victim. Why? Because there's 4 different ways to make money out of it. The first way is to receive referral, because when you create a new account, then you can receive a referral, and later on you can resell those promote codes to semi innocent users. And later on, the cost will be built to the e-commerce that you targeted in the beginning. The second monetization approach is to request a service or online products, or especially expensive products. You purchase them and pay with the victim's credit cards, and then you resell those products to people who want discounted price. Then later on, the victim's credit card will charge for that, and you get certain money out of, like very little that you paid from the victim's perspective. Third is to let the account age, because the cybercriminal have realized that there are many e-commerce platform. They're monitoring newly account that's tied to certain payment informations, because they understand there's fraudsters trying to defraud those stolen payment information at large scales. So they realize they need to create an account, let it age, and later on they can either use it themselves or resell it to other cyber criminals and fraudsters. There will be less detections on those accounts, and there's more privilege to make purchase with those accounts. Last but not the least is the advertisement fraud, because there are certain advertisement agency get paid by new client join the e-commerce platform. So sometimes they will go for vendors who are willing to abuse those newly created accounts created with stolen personal identifiable informations, and then later on they will get paid. So as you can see, in the end, it's the same e-commerce website being abused 4 different ways, and they have to pay out of their pockets. And it's really, really hard for them to understand which one's legit, which one is potentially being abused. Also, if we do a bit more in-depth analysis, we understand the role of each individuals in this underground marketplace. There's masterminds who have very specific target on this e-commerce company. There's sometimes more than that. Through the underground markets, they can reach out to freelancer, they can reach out to specific SIM card vendors or software vendors to bypass the 2-factor authentications, or bypass the two-factor authentications and then tie it to number they can control later on to further abuse this e-commerce platform. To summarize, what I'm trying to do is to kind of highlight the fact that this is a really good example that one regional threat actors or malicious hacker could have control over accounts across the entire world. It allows them to cross the geographic borders, and with that, commoditize infrastructures, tools, and also hacking service, money laundering service. It allowed them to develop tools everywhere, and those tools can be used everywhere, and the targets can be geographically located everywhere. This is why what I mean by cybercrimes are going global. We see threat actors are trying to talk to each other as long as they have the same payment mechanism or the same language that allow them to somewhat talk to each other and see the business opportunity. We see them start extending their capability by abusing vulnerability across the world or victims across the world and expand their target list across the world. So as a cybercrime researchers, I work for Palo Alto Network, and as you can imagine, we have lots of visibility about the network traffic. We have visibility about the file, the malware samples. We have visibility about the signals that can answer quite many evidential, questions that require evidential informations. But I always feel like it is not entirely enough, because in the real threat, in real world, in the wild, we need to understand what people are doing in the marketplace. There are certain scenarios like who abuse you or who hack you are not necessarily the people who further monetize those results later on. So coming back to the marketplace, it kind of shares so many informations or online behaviors among threat actors or cyber criminals that we didn't know. So I always feel like it's important to also pay attention to those online behavior. And if we put it back to the category that we're constantly tracking in the cyber criminal or cybercrime subjects, in marketplace, we can understand what are the malwares that's out there, what are the exploits being recently released or for sale, what are the data breach, what's the phishing, what's the DDoS service look like, what is the BEC scam, what is the ransomware campaigns, what does the program look like, what is the money laundering scheme. I know it sounds like a lot of information, and remember, in this underground marketplace, people are always talking. The buyers are actively buying, the vendors are actively selling. There's a lot of lies, a lot of scamming each other's attempt. So this is why I develop a simple research model for someone like me who have difficulty to stay concentrated, to quickly identify who I am, where I am, what am I looking at, what is this person's role in this environment, and what are things I could potentially get out of it. So please give me a couple seconds, minutes, to introduce this research models that I developed, which is called the Hourglass Model. It is pretty much a model allow you to observe both informations and money exchange in the marketplace. Marketplace does not necessarily has to be deep and dark web hosted in the Tor website. It could be, like in Telegram. There's so many exchange or discussion happening in Telegrams. Whatever bring you the visibility to see people exchange their communication and ideas. Let's just name it and tag it as marketplace for now. And there are 4 different types of informations. The first types kind of informations, so it's a bit like actor-centric. So in the first slide, let's focus on their role and their functions in that environment. The first one is cyber criminals. It's also like the mastermind who usually have a really clear visibility who their target is, what the scheme or the plan looks like, but they don't have the tools and the skills yet. So they would go to the underground forums to look for hacker for hires, to purchase tools, exploits, and sometimes using like obfuscation services. The second types of individuals that we observe are malicious actors who have great talents. They have their hacking service, or they see a unique opportunity for their hacking service or money laundering schemes. So they will bring their service or tools to market and try to find the right buyers for themselves. The third type is the threat actors who sell, purchase, or trade result of a successful intrusion, such as login credentials, access to a compromised machines, or PII or web shell, so on and so forth. The fourth type of characters are people who resell those things in underground market. Sometimes we've came across people who say, this is a credential that I stole back in 2016. I stole it from website A and I tested it on website B, C, D. Some of the credential can be reused, but if you want, I will sell it to you like dirt cheap, like 10%. And then you can try it on website DCE. So why do we pay attention to all these people in these roles? Because I think in the upper part of the chart, those are information that's really important for proactive intelligence versus the lower parts. It's so important to reactive. After a successful intrusion happens, we still need to understand what is happening in the wilds, how effective was my mitigations plan after they're being implemented. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself, but if we move to the second slide to try to think about what are the information you could get from each roles and their function. First, when you're trying to monitoring or understand their communication, try to understand their credibility and their connections, how effective, how influential they are in that forum or in that environment. Who is their targets? Most of them have like preferred targeted industry. And third, what is their strategy? If it's a long-lasting hacking technique or scheme, or it's just a one-time thing, it's important to understand how effective those attacking techniques could last or infrastructure. The second type is the tools. Try to understand the hacking tools or service. How does it work? What is the technique it requires to make it happen? If there's any context that will allow them to take effect. And last but not least, is if they're releasing any tutorial, because if you have the tutorial, it will be a lot easier to understand the step-by-step methodology. How does it work? And how effective it can actually be when they execute an attack. The third type is after the incidents happen, especially after the initial intrusions or initial access being gained. Try to understand who are the victims, who are the potential buyer they're trying to approach or sell those results to, what's the skills and type of compromised data that is out there. And if possible, do a bit of impact assessment. Last but not the least is like the reoccurring damage. However, it's kind of sad, but in real life, it is true that in underground markets, the mechanism allow unattended password or victims suffer from really long-term impact from one hacking incident. And if the mitigation plans is not effective, or if unfortunately the cybercriminal came up with a creative alternative approach, they can abuse that stolen data or access again and again and create really long-term impact on individual victims or e-commerce enterprises. So I think it's important, like now we talk about the role, their functions, and the information that you try to collect. From the security team perspective, we want to take actions, right? Because if we know the information and there's nothing we could do about it, then it's a bit of the waste. So if I may try to push it a little bit further, what are things we could do based on those informations? I would say first, from the proactive perspective, try to verify if the tools, hacking tools or tactics or service the threat actor developed can actually impact you, or could it actually work? Because sometimes it's kind of novel and it's not going to work in real life. It helps you to determine how the risk score, how worried you have to be, and also evaluate if your current detection system could capture those risk and trigger your alarm. not the list, but if we move it to the reactive part, if initial intrusion happens, what are things you could do? You can do a quick fix, have a patch, and then identify the loss and impact scope. And then once you implemented those measures, having the visibility in the underground forums allows you to monitor the long-term effectiveness of your plan. Is there something needs to be changed? If there's something needs to get better, if there's more stakeholder needs to be involved in this conversation. I think the honesty plays a really important role when you're implementing security solutions. So what is next? In my mind, I have an idea how this framework could continue. It's fairly new and it's not as mature as it could be. So I do want to invite you to contact me and let me know what's your thoughts, how this models of research framework could benefit from for your research and brainstorm, or if you have any insights, how to make it better. But in my mind, I think it would be a very powerful tool if we're looking at like ransomware as a service in nowadays. There are campaigns they are actively hiring affiliate programs operator around the world, and sometimes I do concern. I have my worry that they might reach out to regional operators to expand their target list to smaller regional targets. In that case, the damage will expand globally across the geographic borders. From the other perspective, I think there are also certain campaigns or organized criminal groups are using infrastructures in various regions to slow down the investigations and take down operations, which cause more damage for the victims. Instead of like listing out all the ideas I have at the moment, I really want to invite you to use this research framework as a roadmap. If you came across something, you found it interesting, use it as a way to see if you can expand your research plan and framework and quickly check the things that I just listed. If it's something you can answer, if it's something that is just unknown, and the questions that can be answered. So this is just like really humble opportunity to share this idea that I have. So who I am, as I mentioned, I don't know, from Unit 42. For those of you who have not heard of Unit 42 from Palo Alto Network, the name 42, Unit 42 came from the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So 42 is supposed to be the answer of life, the meaning of life, and answer of everything in the universe. That is not our official name from the beginning, but because it's quite catchy and quite lighthearted, so we decided to keep it. It's a lot easier to memorize this name than Palo Alto Network Global Threat Intelligence Team. Which, yeah, it's cool too. And so we are a group of researchers spread across the world in the US, Latin America, here in Europe and Asia. For me, I'm based in Amsterdam. We release free research paper on our official blogs, 2 to 4 a week. It depends on which week. For example, this week is unusually busy for everyone. We all have different specialty and special focus on threat hunting. Some of us are focused on reverse engineering. Some of us focus on malware analysis. So what we're trying to do is we have this really common missions to analyze the data that's available to us. And we try to identify the adversary as much as we can, their motivation, their resource, their tactics, sometimes even their limits. So we better understand what is the threats that our customers or everyone's facing out there. And what is cyber threat intelligence? I think this quote summarizes everything we're thinking of. It should be evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanism, indicator, and it should be something actionable. It should be something can be transformed into actions and not too late, before it's too late, right? Because we want to make sure we equip people, the Intel consumer, to do something in time. So instead of, well, it should, yeah, I kind of just jump ahead of myself. So it should be enable you to do something, no matter whether you're our clients or not, whether you use Palo Alto's product or not. So what we're trying to do is not just give you an IP and say, hey, this is bad, block it. We're trying to tell you, because on this specific day we came across this IP that is tied to this campaign, who traditionally targets certain industry, and using these techniques. And so we highly suggest you should block it. What we're trying to do is really, first, like sharing our research papers in our blogs and through our playbooks, which I'm going to talk a little bit more later. Second is to, of course, make sure our products gets better every day, and all the new threats we detect, we want to make sure we have it covered. Last but not the least is the community sharing. Community is such a big, important elements in this InfoSec community. So we go out and share a lot of our research completely free of charge and see how can we help with everyone. And sometimes we also talk to the media or law enforcement without like violating any of our customer privacy, because we take it very seriously. We try to help as much as we can by sharing our expertise and the visibility that we have. And we really want to create this really healthy dynamic within the cybersecurity community. So if you came across this blog before, if not, like there's the URL over there. We're constantly looking into various threats, such as the BEC originated by Nigerian-based threat actors, or IoT, or the cloud, or cryptojacking, or vulnerability. And I think many of you must aware of this is what is happening right now. Probably the biggest headline this week, which is the solar storm campaign. So in our official blog, there's two major components. The first one is a blog that we try to explain everything that we know, and it takes 6 to 12 minutes to read it. I don't know how's everybody's attention span. Mine is not so great. So for me, I need something that allows me or to take action immediately. And that's the reason why we also have the playbook section, which is called Atom. It's allow people to take a look into it. There's a very short description. It's about these campaigns and the number of indicators that we have. By sharing this information, we try to make sure people can see where they are throughout the entire attack, MITRE attack framework, and in which parts, which IOC was shown, and we try to share it with people. And we also try to make sure we enable everyone, every viewer, to take certain action based on what they have. So we also provide a course of action based on the best practice that we know of. And I've personally been in the cybersecurity industry for 10 years. I don't have technical background. I was trained to be a diplomat, but because it's such a fascinating field and industry, so I jump into it and never get bored. Every day I'm learning. And for me, like, this platform also allows me to study and learn every single day from my peer researchers. So hopefully you will also benefit from it. This will be my presentation for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it up.
Thank you very much, Anna. It was really good presentation, and we will have questions for you on the Discord. So let's see. So the first one is what does Unit 40 to do?
Two.
Find answers to life, universe, and everything, right?
Oh, I think that's the long-term goal, but like little by little, we're getting there. We started with something InfoSec related.
As you have an active perspective on the global cybercrime field, how do you feel that this year and the current new normal has most affected cybercrime? What to you is the most surprising development or lack thereof?
Hmm, that's a really good question. So quite deep as well. Uh, I would say this year the uh, pandemic kind of forced everybody to work from home or work from everywhere. So from the enterprise perspective, uh, all of a sudden they have to get like cloud ready for everybody to work remotely. And um, as we constantly saying in the security field, your security protection is as weak as your weakest link, right? And with this current situation, it means the traditional corporate security all of a sudden are expanded to the employee's home office. And if they're not well protected, then it will be an issue. On top of that, there's a lot of new business process, such as using QR code or increasing number of IoT devices to compensate the new workflow. I think that create a lot of challenges for the IT department or the security department.
All right, thank you very much. As you have a lot of visibility to cybercrime, which countries have really started to appear on the map with regards to cybercrime that maybe haven't had presence before?
Um, I'm not going to pretend that I have visibility to all across the world because I don't, and I think it's important to stay, honest and humble in the cybersecurity field. So I would say um, there is I am kind of trying to understand some Farsi speaking underground forums. I think there are certain hacking tools or malwares that traditionally linger or spread around Eastern European are recently being introduced there. And that is something I want to pay attention to, but with the language and visibility limits, I want to invite everybody to come help me and share your thoughts or observation with me.
All right, thanks. So next question. So, if a marketplace is a key facilitator in this ecosystem of cybercrime, is there anything we can do about them? Shutting them just makes a new one crop up. Or what is the best spot to attack this ecosystem?
Well, English is not my first language, but when I learned this phrase, I do find it explain a lot of things, which is the $1,000,000 questions. It's such a $1,000,000 questions, isn't it?
So what should we do?
I
How to solve this problem?
Well, 42, I guess. I don't know. I'm kidding. I think there are a lot of law enforcement around the globe did a great job here in the Netherlands and US, FBI, and I'm sure like many more. They're constantly investigating and looking into this situation and making it harder and harder. And they effectively took down a lot of marketplace. And I think in some way it also creates the difficulty for cyber criminals to trust each other. So keep on the good work and allow me to keep thinking about this because I really I believe there's a better answer that I can think of right now, but I just don't have it, and I have to be honest about it.
Yeah, the 42 is pretty good one. So let's
42,
go
yeah.
with that. Yeah.
Let's go for 42.
Yeah. So next question: how long, or in what time frame did it take for cybercrime to evolve as a highly networked and specialized market?
Mm, to my understanding, I think it kind of depends on the demand and supply of the market as well. So it changes, it varies from market to market. Let's not forget when we talk about underground markets, we're trying to talk about, I would say, 6, 7 major underground markets divided by language. So each of them grow uh, in a completely different direction, different pace. And we've came across some of them are extremely creative, product focused. They hate talking to people, so they're not service orientated at all. There are certain marketplace that there are. I'm not going to name any specific. There are certain marketplace. They're more service orientated. They come up with creative monetization approach to abuse the single package of data they could steal, and then they can make profit out of it too. So I think we need to keep that um, discussion open. I cannot just tag and label anything
Yeah.
yet.
All right. So next question is about tools.
Okay.
So, in collecting data and building profiles, what kind of tools do you use? Do you tend to use aggregation visualizers like Malteco or the like, or a bunch of specialist tools, more publicly available or in-house tools?
I think there's a lot of in-house tools, and there are many really advanced vendors are actively collecting those informations. So it's a question I'm kind of struggle for over 10 years, and I still don't have a really good answer. Or I have a vision, but it takes so many engineering efforts to make it happen. So far we try to work with both open source tools and certain vendors tools. It
All right.
depends on what is the final goal or problem you try to solve. You might want to make different combination.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, a few more questions. Would you recommend searching for information in forums on the dark web? Dark web, could it be dangerous?
It is super dangerous. Please don't go. Especially if you're like on your parents' network, or like operation security is a really important thing, and that's the reason why there are so many experienced valuable vendors out there, because they know how to do it properly, or law enforcement. So I really don't recommend people just go in there to look into those informations. And if you're truly interested to understand what is happening out there, there are great vendors, free reports out there. Just Google it.
All right. So, how about like sharing information? Is there something like MISP or MindMelt or something collecting underground webs available for blue teamers?
uh, we have I think from the Palo Alto tools that I'm aware of, it doesn't exist. I
Yeah.
cannot lie. Um, I wish there is. Maybe in the future we will, but right now maybe we're all working on having a more like effective collaboration platform to make that happen. But so far no, because that's a lot of noise
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
All right. So, last question. Do you believe it's important to know or learn Mandarin to be able to keep up with the developments in cybersecurity? Is there a lot of tools, documentation, and sources only available in Mandarin?
Hmm. So again, the topic of this talk is the globalization of the underground market. So based on my experience in the Mandarin speaking underground forums, there's both. Let's just take ransomware as example. There's internationally well-known ransomware being introduced to the market, but there's also locally developed or modified ransomware products in the market.
Yeah.
Language capability, of course, it's somewhat important if you want to truly understand the politics, the dynamics, or the culture um, of a regional underground marketplace. So if you have certain things you have specifically in mind, I would say yes. Like for instance, the understanding language is quite important because there's a lot of jargon or context. Yeah.
Yeah, basically you could replace the language with any other, like Russia or something. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but that was all for this, and now we will have a short break before Ulf is going to present you. And thank you very much, Anna, for
Thanks
being
for
here.
having me. And this is my work email, and this is our Unit 42 free of charge Intel sharing platforms. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. And if you have any question, feel free to send me an email or find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you very much for joining us, and it would be awesome you to stay for a while on the Discord, and people can ask questions. And now we will have a few minute break before it's Ulf's turn. So thank you very much.